Hello, everyone. It's Religious Fanboy here again. And today we are discussing the Christian lesson themes in episode 5 of Kino's Journey, The Beautiful World. As always, we are starting with passages of scripture, and we'll be reading out of the English Standard Version. The passages today are Philippians 2, chapter 2, verse 12 and 14, which says this: Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, so now not only as in my presence, but much more in my absence. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you both to will and to work for his good pleasure. Do all things without grumbling or questioning. Philippians is a series of letters written by Paul, or thought to be written by Paul, and these were the original audience would have been to the Christian churches in Philippi, and those citizens of Philippi would have been referred to as Philippians, and that's where we get the title of the book from. And the second verse for this video is from the book of Hebrews, and it's chapter 11, verse 6. And it says, Without faith it is impossible to please him, for whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. And the book of Hebrews is considered to be in the same genre as Paul's letters, but we do not actually know who had written the book of Hebrews. And now we move to the episode analysis. This episode follows Shizu and Riku as they lived on a boat country where Shizu was given the chance to be a part of the upper class in exchange for stopping rebellious actions of their unruly citizens, which he refuses and chooses to live among the commoners. During this time, Shizu and Riku followed T around the country. T is a little girl that they meet in this country. And they discover that the boat is and has been flooding and sinking. This revelation leads to a brief conflict between Shizu and Kino. This also leads to much fear and frustration from the people in the country, and T, out of fear, stabs Shizu. The main message in Christian lesson that I saw paralleled in this episode is that allowing your life to change is required to follow Jesus. Our first talking point is when God calls you to life changes, even though they are scary, you need to have faith. And it's a fact of life that, and we are promised this in scripture, that there is a time and place for every season, and there will be seasons where there is hardship because we live in a fallen world, and there will be seasons of peace. There will be, we live in a land filled with peaks and valleys, and we don't know everything God knows, which leads to uncertainty and fear, which creates conflict. And we see this in the episode through the citizens of the boat country's response to Shizu's words and his discovery. And it is not unlike the children of Israel's responses in the books of Exodus, wanting to return to Egypt out of the idea of, even though they were slaves in Egypt, that Egypt was reliable in contrast to the desert, which was full of uncertainty, but it was what God was calling them to. And it was their refusal to trust Him that led to them being forced to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. And the second talking point is having the faith to go where God calls you is required in order to follow and be like Jesus. Like, and this is paralleled in what is required for the survival of the people in the boat country. Like, they have to leave, they would have to leave their, the only world they've ever known. That's being on a rickety boat. And like, they even talk how it's like the ground doesn't shake at all here. And it's like, it's scary that it doesn't shake. Um, and we also see, like in Philippians, it even says that there will be fear and feelings of discomfort, and that allowing ourselves to be called to these places is required to follow Jesus. That is the main message of Philippians 2, verses 12 through 14. And this is also something we see the disciples do, where they were told initially to go out without extra money and without a second change of clothes, and only taking a staff to protect them. And Jesus tells them that I am bringing you to be sheep among, sending you out as sheep among wolves. And in this time, this is a post Constantinianism time at this being written, and the threat of martyrdom for even just proclaiming to be a Christian is a very real fear that all Christians are facing, especially during this time. Like, majority of the disciples of Jesus and Paul himself are eventually martyred among many other faithful Christians throughout church history around this time period, leading up to the reign of Constantine. And our final talking point is it is not only important that we do what God calls us to, but we also need to have a good attitude about it. I wanted to bring up something in one of the commentaries. This is from David Peterson and the New Bible Commentary 21st Century Edition from the Accordance Bible software, where it actually references makes a reference to the Cain and Abel story, talking about the sacrifices and how it wasn't because of simply the material, like the type of object that was sacrificed. It was that Abel gave his first gifts. Like he gave of his first and best fruit, and did it proudly, and but it is comes across, and we can infer from what Cain did and the way they word it, that Cain did it mostly as an obligation, and it was just out of, it is implied to be out of his excess, where Abel's, it was his first. And we see this kind of paralleled with T's actions, where she does end up leaving the ship and being saved, but she is briefly overtaken by fear in Sebshizu because she's scared, and change big life changes like that are scary. But we need to remember that through our faith in God and understanding that He truly wants and what's best for us, and can make good come out of bad situations. It doesn't mean bad situations aren't bad or scary, but it means that we can have the hope and faith that there is a light to every dark tunnel, that God has placed people in our lives to help us navigate our way to find it, and has been lighting the light at the end of the tunnels to encourage us to keep moving forward and to have the faith to continue to take our next steps. And with that being said, may God be with you, and I will see you next time. Bye.